All right, 30 seconds.
Cool. Should we have like a 10-minute, like a 10 seconds introduction, just so people know who we are and stuff, very quickly?
Yeah, that's probably not a bad idea.
We can do that, and then I can talk about the limit orders flashbots thing and the MistX API.
Cool. All right, I think we should. Yeah, I think we're live now. All right, June, I think we can kick it off. It seems like we are live on YouTube. Hi, everybody who came to watch our live stream today about flashbots, MistX API, and a very new feature powered by Gelato, which you can actually now use on mainnet if you visit sorbet.finance. You will notice that if you're logged in with mainnet, that there's a little toggle front run protection, which basically means that you now have the option to have your limit orders be protected. And under the hood here, the API the Gelato bots use is the MistX API. We have Nathan and Don from the MistX team here in our call today, and we have Ed here from the Gelato team who basically built this cool new feature, front run protected limit orders, powered by Gelato and the MistX API. So yeah, today we want to talk to you about, first of all, who we are, what we've kind of been building in the space, and then about this new limit order feature, and then really most importantly about the MistX API and how we as developers and other developers can use it to basically get flashbots support quite easily for their backend. Yeah, and then I guess we also talk a bit about MEV in general. So yeah, maybe if we start with a round of introductions, maybe Nathan, do you want to kick it off here, and Don, and then we can go to Ed and me.
Hey everyone, my name is Nathan. I'm a MEV engineer. I've been integral in developing the MistX exchange and the MistX backend, which is now the MistX API. Some people know me as the salmonella guy, but I like to think that I've moved on past there, and it won't be the highlight of my career.
Hey guys, nice to meet you. So I've been working in TradFi for most of my work life and did the switch recently to crypto. And so this switch was made by building the MistX backend as well, that we also call the MistX API, as Nathan said. And so yeah, it's been a really great journey so far. I did the switch very recently, like since a few months only. And I'm glad that we can have Gelato integrating the solution today.
Cool. Hi, everyone. I'm Ed. I'm currently a part-time PhD student in deep learning at Imperial College. And on the other part-time, I work with Gelato as a developer. And I've just built the limit orders protected service that is powered by the MistX API.
Awesome. Yeah. So yeah, I guess I'm a frequent visitor of these Gelato calls, but I'm Louis. I founded Gelato together with my co-founder Hilmar like 2 years ago, and I've been also working with Ed here a bit on this limit order feature with the flashbots protection. I've known Nathan for quite some time, pretty cool, and always excited to see what he's doing in this space. Especially recently, there's been a lot of very cool things that came out of the MistX and Salmonella camp, I guess, although this is not like a branding per se, I guess. So yeah, let's kick it off. Maybe Ed, do you want to walk us through what you built here for Sorbet for this front run protected limit order feature?
Yeah, that sounds good. So in the past few weeks, we at Gelato, so we already had this limit order system that is like, it allows users to make deposits and tell us like what's the price that they want, so that a limit order can be executed in the future. So what basically happens under the hood is like the Gelato backend puts this as a task. It just keeps monitoring the markets until the right time is set, and then it just submits a transaction, and it hopefully gets executed, and the user gets the funds that as they should. But one of the things that we wanted is like, on top of these, we want to add some sort of like front running protection, right? Because sometimes when you execute a limit order in DeFi, there's there could a lot could happen between the time you simulate on your transaction on the backend and also the time by which it lands on chain. So for example, for tokens that have lower liquidity, the price could move against you. And so it could create opportunities so that sandwich spots in the mempool, they could simulate and trace your transaction, and they could extract the gap in the slippage that the market now allows. So then we had like a really cool chat with the MistX team. So they were launching the MistX API. So basically what I've been doing was I just prepare like all the smart contracts to be compatible with the Flashbots auction. So like to send the direct miner payment in ETH, and also like took care of like what we needed on our side for the backend, so that we could seamlessly send those signed transactions to the MistX API, and they do like the work of submitting to Flashbots, resimulating, and so on.
Yeah, that was really cool. So actually, maybe I can share my screen quickly to just show how easy it is for users to get access to this new functionality now. June, let me know if that works. So I'm gonna share my screen now. Can you guys see my screen?
I can, yes.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So yeah, I mean, some of you will already know sorbet.finance, which is basically a front end that uses Gelato under the hood to support things like limit orders and GUnit pools and whatnot. So here, for example, let's say I would want to sell some ETH top. This is not investment advice, of course, but like let's say I would say that ETH will peak at 4,852, 2.1% above the market. So sorbet allows me to basically place these limit orders. At the moment, this is happening on Uniswap v2 still. Also some alpha here. There will probably be a Uniswap v3 automated range order support here, but that's for another chat. So yeah, here I've selected my limit order as normally selling 1.4 ETH at 4,850 DAI. And now what's new is we have this front run protection toggle here. There's some information here that it's like basically using the MistX API. This feature is still in beta, but really like we've tested it, it should work well. Definitely like the code has been audited and everything. There is definitely no security risk here, other than the normal smart contract risk. But all of this has been tested for quite some time now, so should be good to try out. So all you have to do is just enable this front run protection toggle, and then you can place your order, and your order will now be front run protected, which basically means that the Gelato bots don't, when your order becomes executable, they don't basically send the transaction via the mempool as they would normally, but now they actually have a plugin, the Gelato bots, that uses the MistX API. So they submit it via that, and at the end of the day, to Flashbots for front run protected executions. All right, I think from.
That's seriously cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the interface especially.
Yeah, maybe like Don, what do you think about? Yeah, what do you think about these features? I know that MistX, for example, you have your own front end for swaps, right? Like for front run protected swaps. What do you think about this like limit order feature? Do you think it's useful?
Yeah, definitely. Limit orders are definitely a great addition in the DeFi space. And we're very happy that you were able to integrate so quickly with us. We've worked as much as possible to make it really easy for anyone to integrate, and any app can really use our API. And it, as Ed was saying, it's as simple as sending a signed transaction, and that's it. So it's a minimalistic approach, and it's very efficient, because as soon as we receive the transaction, what we do is we simulate it first, and then we send it over and over and over to Flashbots, which will then send it directly to the miners. And we try sending it over and over to get included in the first available block. So what happens is that the miner will receive the transaction via the Flashbot network, and we'll see if in that specific block it's profitable for them to include your transaction. And if it is, they will include the transaction in the block. And if it's not, it will basically pass the block, and then we capture this result and we will try again to submit a transaction. We do other things as well, such as error management. So if, for example, your transaction fails because it's not paying enough base fees, or if the slippage tolerance is out of range, meaning that the price of your transaction has moved too greatly, what we do is we will retry over and over because we believe that eventually the market will move in the right direction for your trade, or that the base fee will become cheaper again in the further upcoming blocks. So we have this mechanism in place. And the other thing I'd like to say about our API is that we also have a really good, we've built over the months a really good reputation, which increases also your chance of being included. Basically, because Flashbots has a score mechanism and as a reputation mechanism, and we make sure that we're basically getting included as fast as possible. So I really do believe that those limit orders are really a great addition. This is something that a lot of people will be happy to use. And we're very glad that this is going through the MistX API that we've been building for the last months.
Cool. One thing I can add on the like the inclusion success is like, I must say, has been pretty good, right? Because it's like on top of what he just said, you also offer like a way for us developers to know like what's the recommended gas price to include in our bundles. And like even just by choosing like the lowest tier, the inclusion is just really quickly on pretty much all the orders that I've tried. So I would recommend that.
One comment I'd like to make is that you've done a really good job with the user interface. I mean, just looking at the screen that Lewis put up, on the first glance, you know how to use it, which I think is really important. Like there's no confusion about how the user should go through submitting a limit order. I think you've done a great job there. And that's like a really important piece of the puzzle for onboarding users.
Yeah, and if I may add, I think this is a great example of how the apps could integrate the MistX API in the future. You've done an amazing job. There's been really good collaboration, and you've done really a great work at understanding the advantage and how to present it to the user for a great user experience. So that's really that's at the same time that's good for you because you're bringing that to your users, and that's really good for us as well. We're very happy because this is showing the capabilities, and it's a good example of how you can integrate with our API and technologies.
I think as well, there's just a lot of places you can go from here as well. Limit orders and more complicated styles of orders are something that is missing from decentralized applications. It's something that people are using a lot on centralized exchanges, but up until this, you didn't have many options if you want to keep it decentralized and access some of these more advanced order types. And I think, this is only one step into the kinds of orders that you could do. You could do trailing stops, you could do yeah, the sky's the limit, right? With advanced order types that you can build from here.
Yeah, so maybe one interesting question for me would be like, I know that you guys also did your own front-end mistakes with the swaps and so on. I'm not sure, like you probably didn't do very strong marketing for it or something like that, but I mean, what is the kind of traction you've been seeing there? Like, I assume it's not like super huge, right? Like, so what is the kind of traction you've been seeing there, and why do you think is it that people still don't really like go like for front run protection that much? Because technically, like for a user, it would make way more sense to trade on MistX, right, than on Uniswap. Because I mean, if you look out there, like there's a lot of sandwiching happening. Right? Almost every trade probably you see is getting sandwiched that isn't front run protected. So what's kind of like what do you think will be the path forward here to really like bring this to every user? Will it have to be the Uniswap UI that eventually integrates this, or like what do you think about that?
I think we have a barrier of education in like explaining to users about the scale of the problem. MEV itself is a very hard to understand topic. Most people don't know much about it. The idea of front running is also kind of complicated to explain. And many people who are getting repeatedly front run aren't aware of it or aren't aware of like how much they're actually losing to front running. So I guess it's not about whether there's a need for the product. It's about really educating people about why they need it and why this should really be the default for any type of trading that you're doing.
Yeah, and one thing also is, as you said, we've not been extremely good at marketing, and I think we're getting better now. We have drafted some comics. Some of them have been released already, explaining front running, explaining why it's bad for the users, and explaining why and how mistakes protects you from that. And the other thing that we've had and that we want to expand is we want to show. We have built something that's unique in the DeFi space today. We have built in cashback rewards for users who use misX. So if you go on misX and you trade, all the trades are not going to be eligible because it depends on the arbitrage opportunity your trade is going to create. But you have a good chance if you trade some of the pairs and depending on the volume that you trade, you have a good chance to get an arbitrage transaction added to your transaction and executed. And what we do then, if that happens, is that we send back 40% of the profit back to the user. And it's an instant reward because this is sent directly back to the user's wallet in ETH. So this is a big plus. I think some of our users have understood this and they stick to using mistakes because they see that they're getting very nice rewards back after having traded. And that's also another thing that we want to expand, and we want to we want to market a bit more, like make people understand that they have only benefits from trading on mistakes. They're front run protected, so sandwich bots will not attack their transaction. They get free cancellation if there's a simple button which allows you to cancel and it doesn't cost you anything. And then if it fails for any reason, like you will on Uniswap, it doesn't cost you anything. So that's a free important features that Flashbots has allowed us to bring forward. But then we've added this fourth feature, which is cashback rewards. And this is very unique in the DeFi space.
Yeah, that's super cool, actually.
Could you clarify, Dom, what the largest reward is that a user has received to date?
Yeah, I could. Let me go directly on the live dashboard. It's 0.93 ETH, which is equivalent at the time of trading. It was $4,236.
The amazing thing is, like, when people trade, they're generating this MEV. There's no way that they can't generate the MEV. But up until now, the MEV just goes into the market, and bots are just fighting over it, and all of the profit is getting split between bots and between miners. But by using the RPC to value extract in the same bundle as the user's trade, we can capture the MEV and distribute it back to the user instead of to miners and to bots. And in the normal market, the user is receiving nothing from all of the MEV that they're generating. So I think this is like a really nice feature of the API, this ability to internalize the value that the user is creating and actually funnel it back to them. Because ultimately, the user is probably the most deserving of MEV, right? Like, out of all the people that MEV currently gets split between, none of the MEV is going to the person who's actually creating that value in the first place. And I think that's something that's important to address.
And one thing I'd like to say is that I don't think people, and that's exactly what Nathan was saying a few minutes ago, but I don't think people understand what is MEV. I don't think people understand what is front running. But I think it's important that everyone understand that any trade potentially generates value. So MEV is a big word, and it took me time when I started DeFi to understand MEV. So I will understand that not a lot of people understand that from the beginning. But I think the important message here is any trade, all the trade you're doing is valuable, and that some of the people in the DeFi space understand that very well, and they build bots executing orders automatically to make sure that they will extract the value out of your trade. So solutions like misX, the misX DEX is a bit like the Robin Hood in the space, right? It's trying to get some of this value and give a portion back to the users. So I think this is a pretty big change, and if we keep continuing educating people, I think that's going to be a big driver for the misX growth in the future.
All right, cool. So maybe do you want to quickly, Nathan, run us through like kind of the history of how you got to what is now the MistX API? Because we know that there was like there is a front end, right? And at the end of the day, now you also have a very back end kind of focused product with the MistX API, which we can relate to at Gelato, right? Like we are mostly back end focused. We also have some like front ends here and there, but usually we're also back end focused. So maybe, yeah, how did you get here, and where do you kind of want to go with this? What are the kind of use cases you see springing up here for developers?
So it's like a very, it's come a long way from its beginnings to where it is now. And this isn't something that I've disclosed publicly previously, but the API in its current form originally was a sandwich bot. The idea was that the original version of MistX Exchange was going to be a sandwich bot, where rather than getting sandwich in the free market, users would use this exchange. The sandwich bot would sandwich them, and it would give the sandwich profit back to the user. So that was kind of the original idea, and that was how we originally constructed the back end of MistX as a sandwich bot. About a few weeks prior to our original launch date, we realized that this was a very gas intensive method of running the DEX, and it wasn't as good of an idea as just putting the user's trade through flashbots and wrapping the routers of other DEXs. So we switched away from a sandwich bot to the MistX DEX as it exists today, but the backend code was still originally built as a sandwich bot. Then sometime after the DEX was launched, we decided to split the DEX into two products. The backend would become what is now the RPC, and the front end would become the DEX, which still exists in its current form. So yeah, it's been through a long process of iteration, but I mean, it's amazing how code that was originally a sandwich bot is today being used for front run protection by so many different other projects. Where will we go in the future? There's a lot of options. I think right now the scope has sort of been limited to submitting through flashbots and on Ethereum, but we foresee we foresee a broadening of the scope of the API, potentially bringing it to other blockchains, potentially working with other providers, finding other ways that we can provide positive value extraction for users across blockchain in general.
Cool, nice. Actually, I was wondering, I didn't research this much, but do you already see a lot of like service providers on other like networks like Phantom or Polygon or so on? Because like obviously a lot of our users require front-end protection everywhere, but from what I know at the moment, like for example, you're only on mainnet really, right? So do you think that there will soon also be similar service providers, or maybe even yourself offering services like that on other networks? I mean, a kind of like a prerequisite would be like a flashbot similar like service on these networks, right?
Well, every blockchain works differently, so it's hard to apply the exact methodology of Ethereum to other blockchains. But we definitely think that there's a product market fit in general for users who generate MEV, being given back the profits of the MEV that they've created, and providing some RPC for them to do this with is kind of the natural fit. So we are exploring that as a potential option in the future. But I guess the caveat there is that every single blockchain that you apply this to is going to work in a completely different manner, and it's not a one size fits all approach.
Yeah, ideally our expertise is MEV, right? Extracting value and giving it back to the user. So we want to work on that on every blockchain we can. Now we don't have an exact plan at the moment, because we are discussing it now. We don't even know ourselves. We are still in research and trying to find where and how we can expand the MistX API and the MistX DEX.
And do you think we're going to need something like other blockchains having like an MEV Geth version of their own client, you know, like to implement the Flashbots auction, or could there be like an easier way to make this possible?
It really depends on how the mempool works on each blockchain. If you have a global style of mempool like Ethereum, then probably you do need a Flashbot style solution, but that's not necessarily the case on every blockchain. On some blockchains where there's not a globally distributed mempool, it could be enough potentially just to have we could potentially build an RPC solution directly into the blockchain. But yeah, it's not a one size fits all approach. And like from on a technical level, it really breaks down to how the mempool works on each specific chain and how mempools are propagated on each chain.
All right, cool. Did you see any recent interesting MEV trends that are kind of new, or is it more the same old sandwiching, arbitrage, and liquidations?
Well, I mean, prior to MEV becoming popular, at least in the crypto sphere, there was all this talk about the dark forest and all the monsters that lurk within it and so on. I think we've shined a light to a large degree. We've we've put a flashlight on the dark forest and we kind of know what's in it now. It is mainly arbitrage, liquidations, and sandwiches, but there is still a lot of really interesting and innovative long tail stuff that goes on. There's salad sandwiches, there's like salmonella type stuff, there's gambling, there's randomness exploitation, which has a whole bunch of different applications. There's still people who are really pushing the boundaries of what's possible with MEV extraction. And it's still like, it is breaking into something that is less hobbyist and more professional on the traditional genres like arbitrage and liquidations, but there still is a large amount of these sort of solo searchers who are going in the long tail direction and just every few months you'll see something really exciting and innovative that an individual working alone has done.
And how do you, or do you even track like kind of the MEV happening on other chains other than Ethereum? Because like I would imagine that it must be rampant already on, I don't know, Polygon or even Avalanche these days. Like, why wouldn't it be, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, MEV is sort of a game to the people who play it, and the rules of the game are defined on a technical level by the technicals of how the blockchain works. So, for example, on Ethereum, you have people submitting through flashbots, and people are not playing a latency game; they're fighting with each other to gas optimize. Because if two people see the same opportunity and they both submit a bundle for that opportunity, and they're both bidding very high, the person who generally will win statistically over the long term is the person who can gas optimize their contract the best. So the game on Ethereum is kind of gas optimization. On other blockchains, you'll see different things playing out. On some blockchains, it's a latency game. It's whoever can act the fastest. Some blockchains, it's co-location, who can like strike deals with the people who are staking on that blockchain. Some blockchains, it's just a spam game. It's like who can push out and spam and propagate the most transactions. So like the MEV is kind of very interesting in that regard, in that like there's different games being played on different chains, and no chain is exactly the same when it comes to MEV. Some chains are very sort of like competitive in that people will be like pushing the rules of the chain itself, like reorging and attacking the consensus of the chains. Other chains, it's a lot more laid back. Like I would say that on Ethereum, it's quite a laid back chain in terms of MEV. You just have people who are submitting bundles through the flashbot system and bidding with miners. You don't have people who are modifying clients or playing latency games or spamming the chain to death.
That's really interesting take. Actually, I recently saw this tweet from someone, and basically, like obviously this is a very, very, very hot or normal take these days, but this idea of that there is no fair ordering of transactions. I was wondering if you guys, Ed, Nathan, Don, if you have any opinions on this, like what constitutes fair ordering, and could there ever be like fair ordering? What would be the fair ordering that you would propose?
I wish I had an answer, because I kind of have a problem rather than a solution. I think that the idea of fair is an extremely subjective idea, and that someone's fair is someone else's unfair. Some people would say like whoever is first should get the transaction, but then you would say, well, that person could just be co-located with validators, or they could just be someone in the first world with more money to spend on infrastructure. So saying that like first in, first out is fair, I think that's very subjective, and I'm not sure that I agree with that. But yeah, I don't have a good answer, just because there's not There's not any definition of fair that fits everything. I would probably just say, in my opinion, it's just it's unhelpful terminology, and that we should probably be talking with different terminology. Like, rather than fair and unfair, we should probably be talking about negative externalities and positive externalities, and what is negative and how do we minimize that.
Okay, so do you think like the Flashbots auction with like full block proposals and just having validators picking the best block, do you think that's like the most fairish way to go, or do you have other views on that?
I mean, I don't think it's unfair, but I think there's still a level of subjectivity there. If you're talking about building full blocks, and I mean, the people who are favored under a proposal like that are people with a lot of resources to spend on developers and a lot of resources to spend on infrastructure. I mean, in that kind of environment, the people who are favored are the people who can kind of do everything at once, right? Not the people who can do arbitrage or the people who can do liquidations, but the people who can do both of those at the same time, plus every other type of strategy at the same time. Is it fair? Again, like, it's just subjective. It's fair in some ways and it's unfair in other ways. But just like every other proposal, I think that there's trade-offs.
You would probably need like the off-chain relayers to just coordinate the players that are more individual. So for example, I run an arbitrage bot, you run a liquidation bot, we'll both submit to a relay and they form the block to make a better one with our transactions and so on.
Yes, but I guess isn't the incentive there for the relay to begin running those bots themselves, because then they can construct more profitable blocks?
Yeah, possibly.
I guess you also got to ask yourself, like, where the line is going to be drawn, because to construct the most profitable block, you probably want to be sandwiching users, right? You want to probably be doing all kinds of MEV extraction that has a negative reputation and that people are very vocally against.
True.
All right. Okay. So, are there any final comments from you guys before we wrap this up and maybe answer some questions from the chat if there are any? I'm not sure if June is still online here. She usually posts those questions in the chat so we can answer them. But yeah, do you guys have any final remarks about MistX API, MEV, anything you're building, excited for these days?
I mean, I could talk forever about MistX, but I just wanted to reiterate again that how excited I am about what you're actually building at Gelato. The limit orders are super cool. I'm really excited as to where you're going to take it from here. I will be a user of it. Like, I have trailing stop orders that I want to place right now, but there's just no way that I can do it in a decentralized manner. And I will be a user of your product in the short term and in the long term as you develop it further.
Yeah,
yes, I'm
really
here.
cool.
Sorry. Yes, I'm here. I'm very glad that you integrated our solution. I mean, as I said before, for MistX, I think we need to do a bit more marketing. We need to expand the API, the usage of the API, and explain more why it's very beneficial. So I think the fact that you've integrated with our solution is a very good first. I mean, I would say first step, like the first official app where we discussed to integrate our solution. I don't know if you're actually the first app because the API is open to public and maybe some people have quietly and silently integrated. But we're very happy that your solution is integrated and very happy that you're getting a good success during your integration.
Yeah, I mean, I can add to that. So, we had a really good experience in integrating. It was very easy. Like, we had the team on Telegram. They would reply within seconds or minutes. So, like that was easy. And like the inclusion rate is really good, indeed, as you guys told us before. And perhaps one other thing that I would like to just say to other protocol developers or the app developers is, like, even though we sold this limit order system as something on our UI on sorbet.finance, this is actually something that you can integrate in your own D app or protocol. So all you have to do is just follow like the GitHub link, because we just have like a really nice TypeScript library where just with a bunch of lines, you'll just be able to offer all this capability with limit orders and MistX API protection to your users. And even it's built also in a modular way. so that you will be able to include your own DEX if Uniswap v2 or v3 are not for you.
Yes, exactly. So we've exposed this functionality in our limit order library so that if you have a UI and you want to offer limit orders with Flashbots protection and the MistX API on your UI, that's basically what the library does for you. It's very simple. It's a React component. It takes like 1 hour or so to integrate. So yeah, I think other UIs have already used this library before, like QuickSwap, for example, uses it for limit orders. SpookySwap and SpiritSwap uses it. So yeah, that's really cool. We do have one question from the chat from Liquid Fiasco LP. Sandwich, is this a growing trend? I think it's already past the trend. I think it's if anything, it's peaked. No, probably yeah. I mean, we actually noticed this sometimes with limit orders on mainnet. We saw that even like with limit orders, it's not as juicy a target as like some other swaps would be, where people have a very high slippage tolerance, or like even, some people even place market orders still, which is crazy. Obviously, you can't do that on Ethereum mainnet. But there's very small room for value extraction even with those limit orders. It's not like the user would notice per se, really, because they still get their min return with the limit order system. They would never get less than their min return. But technically, they could have gotten more, and they don't know about this. And that's because some sandwich bot came in between and basically took some of that slippage tolerance that the user had. So we tracked this, and we did see this happening even with the limit orders on Sorbet, that sometimes people were sandwiched and probably they didn't know. But yeah, there was, I think, one trade where someone could have gotten a lot more than they did. It was still within their confines of their min return that they specified, but they could have gone away with a lot more than they actually did, and probably never noticed. So now we hope that people will enable this front running protection and they will get more out of their trades.
Yeah, if I can comment that, as you said, it's not a growing trend as such, as we've seen more bots, more sandwich a few months ago in the space, but this is something that's obvious now. Like if you're not protected, you're gonna get sandwiched at some point. Maybe not for all your trades, because not all your trades are gonna be attackable, but at some point you're gonna be sandwiched. If I can add something, if you want to know if you've been sandwiched or not, we released a website a few months ago, which is called sandwiched WTF. Sorry, sandwiched.wtf, and you can just connect your wallet or put a wallet address there and look at all the sandwiches that you've had in the past. So that will help you to see whether you've been sandwiched on using any dApps previously. So yeah, so sandwich, we do track sandwiches. This is one of our main business. So we do track sandwiches. We have dashboards showing how many sandwiches we have and happened for the last week, last months, and we do follow the trend. And we can say that this has become the new normal in the space.
It's kind of hard not to get sandwiched if your transaction can be sandwiched and you place it into the public mempool. I think it would be a very rare occurrence if you made a trade nowadays that could be sandwiched. You put it into the mempool and it was included in a block, not in a sandwich. That would surprise me. So I'd say when you say like has sandwich trading peaked, say yes, it's peaked in that like there's just no one else to get sandwiched.
Yeah, so I think June, yeah, that's I think the link. June will add the link to sandwich.wtf.
It's with an ED at the end. Sandwiched.
Sandwiched, okay, sandwiched.
Yeah.
Okay, nice. Yeah, actually, I know this website. It's fun. It's really cool. All right, cool. So yeah, I think we can wrap this up. Thanks a lot, Nathan and Don, for visiting us here in our community call, Fireside Chat about MistX API, Gelato Network, and the new feature of front-run protected limit orders. And thanks a lot, Ed, as well, for walking us through how this works. And first of all, also for shipping this, I guess, this cool feature to our users. Thanks a lot.
Exciting stuff.
Thanks for having us here. It was a great chat.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
See you. Have a good one. Bye.